Hi everyone, today I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step on how to build this 10-foot trampoline by Tripletree. Now these are all the parts you see here, and by the end of this video we're going to turn this into this. Let's get started. Now before you do anything, a couple of tips I want to share. One, I highly recommend that you have a minimum of 2 people to successfully set this up without any trouble. You can do it alone, but there are some parts that will be challenging. Number 2, all of the tools needed are provided, but if you have a 10mm socket, it's going to make your life much easier. Number 3, make sure you wear a nice pair of gloves, like these Gorilla Gloves you see here. These will help protect your hands. They do provide a pair of gloves in the box, but I like these. They're a little more comfortable and a little more sturdy. Now, first thing is first, let's make sure you have all the parts. I recommend laying everything out on the yard where you plan to build the trampoline and visually inspect the condition of all the parts and count them to ensure that they match with all of the parts shown on page 4. If you are missing parts or have damaged parts, stop and contact the seller first. Now, once you've confirmed all the parts are accounted for and in good condition, proceed to page 5, where there are some bullet points to read before the assembly. For step 1, as listed on page 6, we're going to build the base legs first. You'll use the supplied Allen key 6-leg base screws, which is 2 screws per base leg, and you'll slide the short vertical leg extensions onto the leg base, line the screw holes up as shown here, and then go ahead and screw them together until hand tight. Now, do the same for the other side, and you'll repeat this for all 3 leg base assemblies. And for step 2, you may see in the box that your frame tubes will already have the T-joints connected. Go ahead and do a rough layout with the 3 legs facing inward and the tubes surrounding them with the holes facing down. Now you're going to see the T-joints will be on the wider end of the frame tube, which should be on the left side of each tube. So if they were not attached in the box, go ahead and attach them now. Next, attach the tubes together at each T-joint, and when you get to the last one, you're going to see that it does not fit easily because of the tension and the shape of the tubes. This is where you'll need the other person to push on the opposite side to give enough flex in the ring for the tubes to attach in the final T-joint. Now here's a tip. If you're by yourself, you can prop the opposite end against a stationary object like a fence or patio foundation to achieve the same effect. Next is step 3 found on page 7, where we will install the 3 base leg assemblies into the ring frame. You'll simply push the legs into each set of T-joints and make sure that they're pushed in all the way. Also make sure this is done on flat level ground. Now you can see this is from the inside of the frame, and you're going to make sure that these screw holes lining up here are all facing inside. For step 4, which is on page 8, we're going to flip the frame assembly upright and attach the bottom safety poles to the outside of the frame. For this, you're going to take the screw, and you'll notice they have a squared off end that's going to lock into the squared hole of the tube. Now you're going to line it up with the T-joints, and you'll want to be sure they are mounted on the outsides of the frame. The end that has the spring-loaded nub will be facing upwards towards the top, and then you'll place the 2 screws into the bottom holes all the way through the pole. Then your plastic bushing will go behind that, and you'll line these up with the holes where the T-joint is. Make sure the screws are pushed all the way in and locked into the square holes, and then you're going to add your washer and the nut, which are going to be on the inside of the trampoline frame. Now you can either use the wrench tool provided to tighten the nut, but you'll save a ton of time by using that 10mm socket wrench I mentioned earlier. You'll repeat these steps for all 6 safety pole bottoms. Step 5 will be installing the trampoline mat as shown on page 9. Now for this step, I highly recommend using gloves, and also be sure to use the included spring tool. Do not attempt to use your hands on these springs at any time. Here's another tip. Use a Sharpie marker on this step. It will make the process so much easier and faster. First, lie the mat out within the frame and inspect it to ensure there's no damage and all of the V-rings are present on the mat. Next, you will choose a point on the frame and mark it with the Sharpie as point number 1. Then we will count 15 spots from there and mark that spot. And then count another 15 and mark that spot. Finally, do the same for the last spot. Next, take the mat and mark one of the V-rings with the Sharpie to match up with our first mark on the frame. Then do the same process on the V-rings of the mat. Count 15, mark it, count another 15 and mark it, and finally count the last 15 and mark that. So here is our boxes of springs, and you'll start with 4 springs and be sure to use the included spring tool. Then make sure we use the spring with the wider end on the frame side that is marked, and then the smaller closed end of the spring will be attached to the V-ring of the mat. You'll do this for the 4 spots we marked on the frame and on the mat. Here's a tip which I learned the hard way. Instead of attaching the spring to the frame first and then trying to pull it to the mat side, which is wrong, Be sure to hook the spring onto the V-ring of the mat first and then use the spring tool to pull the other wider end to the frame. It'll be much easier this way. Once you have the 4 springs connected, it will look similar to this. Now, start with one of these 4 connected springs and move 3 spots to the left and attach a new spring. Then do the same for the other 3 spots. You'll keep repeating this around the mat until the remaining springs are attached. The idea is to evenly disperse the tension and not have 30 springs attached to one half of the frame and only 3 springs attached to the other side, for example. It'll be faster to have a second person hook the springs onto the V-rings, so then you can just go around and pull them all onto the frame. Once you're done, all the springs will be applied, and it is very important that you do not attempt to move or lift the trampoline at this stage, as it may distort the frame. Step 6 will be applying the frame cover pad, as shown on page 12. Simply unfold the cover pad and lay it over the springs with the warning label facing up. Once it is laid flat, we're going to attach the bungee straps to the underside of the frame located at each of the T-joints and safety bars. To attach these, you're going to drop the bungee and hook between the springs on the right side of the T-joint, and then pull the hook around the safety bar on the outside, go back under to the left side, go under the mat and hook it onto the first spring on the left of the T-joint. You can also hook it to the V-ring as well. And then pull the cover pad over the frame between the safety bar and the T-joint. You'll repeat this for all 6 safety bar / T-joint spots. Next is step 7, shown on page 13, which will be the safety pole installation. First thing to do is unfold the safety net out onto the ground. Then you'll see that the safety pole can only go into one open side of the netting, which will be the bottom side. Insert the end of the safety pole with the black plastic end cap and slide the pole about halfway into the net. Repeat this for all 6 safety poles. Next, safely get onto the trampoline with the safety net and place the first top half of the safety pole onto the bottom half. The spring-loaded nub you'll have to push in as you slide the top half onto the bottom half, and then you can twist the top half until it locks into place. Repeat this for all 6 safety poles, and then you'll start to pull the safety netting down over the bottom half of the safety pole until it has reached the frame. Now here's a tip. Don't try to work the netting down on one pole at a time, but rather do them evenly so the tension is not too tight on one side. It also helps to have one person inside the frame pulling the netting down from the top, while the second person on the outside pulls the netting down to the frame. Lastly, as shown on page 14 is step 8, where you'll attach the hooks for the safety net to the mat. To do this, you're going to need to pull the hook down over the blue pad and then under the frame, where you'll wrap it once around the spring and then hook it to the V-ring of the mat as you see done here. Repeat this for all the bungee hooks on the safety net. Now, your ladder may or may not have come assembled in the package. If so, disregard this next step. But if it was not assembled, here's a quick walkthrough on how to put it together. Take the parts out and inspect them, of course, and then you'll have the crossbars laid onto the ground first with the curved tips facing up. Then place the long bars into the curved tips of each side with the curves of the long bars also facing upward. Then place one of the screws through the bottom of the crossbar with the square cut out through the longer bar, and place a washer on top, then the nut, and tighten it down. Do this for all the screws and tighten them down well. Attach the ladder to the frame where the zippered enclosure is located on the safety net, and then cover it with the safety pad. Step 9 is the last step, located on page 15, and that is to visually and physically inspect everything and do a safety check before using the trampoline. And that's it. Congratulations on building your new trampoline, guys. Be sure to read through all the safety instructions and guidelines, as well as the care and maintenance for your new trampoline. So lastly, I just want to say thank you so much. I hope this video was helpful. Of course, be safe with your new trampoline and enjoy.